So let's kind of move on and talk about, most agencies pretty much operate under some standard guidelines, either they'll call them SOGs, standard operating guidelines, or SOPs. I'm going to kind of direct this at Derrick. How would, I think you've done some work in developing some of these with your agency. How have you helped in that development in kind of creating guidelines tailored specifically to public safety agencies?
So we were talking earlier, and having a standard operating procedure on emergency is something that all public agencies do. Whether it's a fire or whatever it is, whether it's law enforcement or fire. And if we have a center hallway fire, we have some certain specific operations we do for that fire. So because the UAS is a new industry, we're all kind of utilizing it in what we think is the right way and the best way. Some people are new to the technology, others have been doing it for 4 or 5 years. But a standard operating procedure is something that as you get on scene, you have an operation that your drone pilots are trained to do and implement. I'll give you an example. If we were to be dispatched to a swift water rescue, what we would do as a drone pilot is come and identify ourselves to the IC and then find out when last that victim was seen that fell into the swift water. And then we would do a calculation of how fast that water is moving and then try to figure out where that patient or victim would be at a specific place on that river. Then we would dispatch 2 drone pilots with visual observers, one to fly upstream, one downstream, with the proper drones and thermal equipment. So these are things that need to be played out appropriately when you get on scene and have that thought out before you get there. It's the same as going to a brush fire. If you go into a brush fire, you identify yourself to the IC, and now you need to have established communications with air ops if your agency has an air operation where you're communicating and you're giving your location of you're asked to do a thermal image of a certain landscape in the train somewhere. You need to let the IC know where you're at, your longitude, your latitude, your altitude, and how long you're going to be there, so they can identify that information and give it to the air ops. And now air ops knows that you're there. So you're actually communicating and not creating any incident because of your operations. So if air ops need to come in and do a water drop, or they need to come in for whatever reason, they're able to communicate to us that they're coming in. We ground our aircraft, communicate to them that the airspace is clear, and we establish this communication system. So with every emergency, whether it's a hazmat, whether it's structure fire, brush fire, search and rescue, we set up these guidelines, these procedures, so that everything runs smooth. We have checklists, just like with the aircraft, of things that need to get taken care of and done. And we've been establishing those, and I've been training with those at other public agencies also.
Anybody else have anything else to add on policies for public safety guidelines? All right. So we touched on drone as a first responder, and I think that's certainly a very forward-thinking way of using autonomy in public safety. But how do you see autonomy impacting public safety operations for the better as we go forward?
So I'm sure everybody can imagine helicopters are extremely expensive, and very few agencies have the luxury of having air support via helicopter. And when you do have a helicopter, there are only special times when you're able to use those helicopters. A lot of agencies aren't able to have them flying around proactively all the time. They're usually staged and ready to launch. But the idea with the nesting drones and having them immediately available is extremely valuable, in that we can launch just for basic calls for service. They don't have to be emergencies per se. An example, we had a call of a man passed out in a parking lot in the car. The drone operator, he launched, and when he got overhead, found out that the car he was in was stolen. So that kind of made it a little bit bigger. He was able to zoom in, sees the drug paraphernalia in his lap. Officers start to respond to contact him. He sees the officer, and now he runs out and he starts running. And it's a foot pursuit. Anytime you're chasing a subject, it's very difficult for officers to maintain, be able to follow them on foot. So they all jumped in their patrol cars, and the drone operator was able to basically tell him where he's running to. And the subject ran into an alcove with some trash bins, and he threw something in the trash bins, and then ran away some more. Long story short, after the foot pursuit, they got him in custody. The drone operator had him go back to the bin, and it was a stolen handgun that the subject had and had gotten rid of a substantial amount of drugs in the area also that the officers never saw. But because the drone operator was able to zoom in and see exactly what was happening, we were able to get a parolee who had a stolen handgun in a stolen car, who was under the influence, just by having the drone available just for a basic call. It was very beneficial for the officers. The biggest impact, though, for public safety, I think, is being able to remove the pilot in command up on our rooftop. That gets very expensive for our agency. We already have the officer who can fly the drone as a teleoperator. We've already purchased the equipment. We have the software. But for agencies really to make this an ongoing, make it cost efficient, is we've got to remove that visual observer and that pilot in command if we could do it from the teleoperator. And that's where drones need to improve in their collision avoidance and the remote ID to be able to do that in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add, I would take autonomy in general, I think, is the key to unlocking really the scalability of drones long term, not only the way Don's talking about, but you all remember when you first had a drone that could hover in place, and it kind of unlocked it for everyone, and all of a sudden now we can see working, using it at work. Simple autonomy features that are critical, like the RTH or return to home feature. These things are, very low level autonomy, but they were critical to be able to use it effectively in everyday operations and to meet the safety case to get approval by the FAA. And you see the evolution. I think I have a front row seat really to the evolution of autonomy in terms of enabling advanced operations. The next level, DFR, where you go below the tree line and now the drone can fly in challenging environments without hitting anything. You can't do that from a teleoperation perspective, where you can't see the drone. You can't do that without advanced autonomy. So, certainly being able to just scan a crime scene and collect that evidence in real time, or fly through a SWAT environment indoors and get a real-time 3D model as you're flying, having a drone basically navigate its way through so you're not afraid of collision. All these things that people I talk to are desiring every day. And I think it's really going to unlock the next level, just like the basic autonomy of, what I would say are just simple manual drones of generation 1, really going to get unlocked as we move through. And it's going to be like the evolution of cell phones. It's a perfect analogy, right? Remember when Nokia and BlackBerry dominated, and then you started to rethink the way you use phones and what they use them for. And now it's a totally different hardware piece supported by software. And I've seen that not only from where I'm working now, but even before that with the envisioning DFR and other advanced use cases.
So do you have any inside information from Skydio that you want to share with everybody today?
Hesitant to turn this into a Skydio ad. Obviously I'm biased from where I sit, but no, there's exciting things. I think everybody's working real hard. The whole industry is moving leaps and bounds, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of this.
I think if you don't mind me speaking to that, as far as Skydio is concerned, and some of the other aircraft too, a lot of this technology is actually coming together for public safety. And what I mean by that is there's certain specific needs that public safety needs. For instance, something that's compact and easy to carry. A lot of these bigger aircraft that I love flying and are extremely powerful in use case, a lot of cases they can be used in. But to be able to have something that's compact is going to be extremely important. Something that has autonomously or that has anti-collision is going to mitigate any type of liabilities and stuff like that. It's going to help with those kind of things. Longer flight times, being able to have a 180 directional view, the camera, all these different types of situations are things that public safety needs. And I'm not sure, I actually wanted to ask Don, what type of aircraft are you guys flying that are flying these autonomous flights? It's interesting. I was wondering what it was.
We just transitioned to the Matrice 300, the DJI Matrice 300. We were flying with the 210s, but the 300s have doubled our flight time, and the camera is just incredible. So we're very pleased. We're just going with that. We're not just DJI drones. We'll go with whatever comes out. What's the best out there? So we're always looking for the next best drone out there. So if you have something, let us know. We'd love to see it.
Well, I know that M300 has a longer range too, up to 9 miles. So the capability of that's huge. Plus, it's got some really good anti-collision capability. So it's awesome.
Yep.
All right. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what do you see as future UAS use cases or concept of operations? What do you see? How do you see that developing, and what do you see as kind of inevitable in public safety? I mean, I know DFR is definitely one of those, but do you see anything else that public safety is looking towards, or maybe should consider working on for the future, or even on the fire side?
As far as policy and availability or regulation, what specifically are you asking?
Just kind of where do you see things developing, or is there some concept out there that maybe a public safety agency and maybe a drone provider should think about, or just I think the drone as a first responder, that's kind of a outside the box way of thinking, particularly in law enforcement. I mean, it's very progressive, and to see that take off and flourish is pretty exciting. So just kind of curious if anybody had any other ideas or saw anything else, just kind of looking towards the future as far as different operations.
I've spoken to Fritz about this. We joke that all officers have body-worn cameras these days, and you can imagine maybe it's a foot pursuit and they press a button and a drone launches from their patrol car and immediately catches up to them and starts doing, or you send a canine that has a fob and the drone follows the canine and gets that aerial view of it. We would think it's sci-fi. This is never going to happen, but here we are talking about drones and launching them to deliver our lunches and our packages on our doorsteps and everything. So we've actually applied for a waiver for the FAA for a 1 to 2 waiver, so that when our drone is overhead on a call and the battery is starting to deplete where it has to return to base, we can launch a second drone from the same location and get overhead and basically swap drones, so we never lose that video footage if it's an ongoing call. But there's some regulations that are challenged with that, because your pilot in command can only fly 1 drone at a time. But even though the autonomy of the return to home and the fly to it, this is something that it's a different mindset. So we're hoping we'll get that pretty soon here.
So you kind of touched on, you mentioned about drone delivery, and that's certainly making advancements, I guess, kind of in the private industry side. Do you think that there's, I mean, it's kind of like what you mentioned, do you think there's instances where as drone delivery for private companies advances, that maybe it opens the door for public safety agencies to expand their operations? And I mean, and if they do, is it going to complicate things where you think they may have to operate under Part 135, or just kind of anybody's thoughts on?
One of the ones I've been waiting to see, I saw a company come out with it as a concept, never saw it go anywhere, and that is being able, it goes along with the drone as a first responder, flying AEDs out to a cardiac call. I mean, I'm a huge believer in AEDs. I save people, as a paramedic using electrical shock therapy, and the faster you can get an AED to someone, their chances of survival just increase dramatically. Excuse me. So I think that's one that I'd love to see come about, but I haven't seen anyone really beyond that initial concept take it further. Another use that I've been exploring right now, and I'm actually hoping to get out with LAFD and do some work with them, is I started doing this last year before I retired with another company, not DJI, and since I've been using the DJI's Phantom 4 multispectral camera, and I was able to utilize a multispectral camera last year to fly over an area, see what the fuel moisture content was, so I knew how flammable that vegetation was, how ready to burn it was, and make decisions at that time for restrictions of outdoor burning, which in Texas, under right conditions, you're allowed to burn outdoors. So we instituted a burn ban based on that. But that's the especially seeing the wildfires in California lately. That's another tool in the toolbox to determine when conditions are getting bad, and now maybe we're forward deploying assets. When you talk Cal Fire or Texas A&M Forest Service moving aircraft units around, that's a lot of money. It's hundreds of $1,000s a day just to relocate them. And now when we know those areas of the state that are getting into worse conditions through this technology, we fly in a few minutes and find those conditions out. We're more efficient at resource allocation. So, and I just want to also go back to the commercial side of things, maybe, but when we're talking medicine deliveries that maybe come about on active rescues in flooding for trapped individuals that may take a while to get to them, maybe we can deliver medicines. Or I'm surprised I haven't heard, and maybe someone has, pharmacies looking to this for delivery to people that are homebound and not able to get out. So I just every day I think we've reached that limit and more ideas come out. So
yeah, to touch on what you just said, Wayne, Drone Up has been working with these delivery systems with CVS and actually delivering pharmacy products and stuff, and I've talked to them about that also. And so we know that they're actually working hard, and we know these things are going to come about, and it's just a matter of time. I've been working with public agencies, LAFD, and some other neighboring agencies, LA County and LA County Lifeguard, on payload delivery systems, flotation devices with a tagline attached. So we're able to take it's called a switlick, and what it does, it hits the water and actually automatically inflates. We're able to take that device with a leader line of 200-300 feet and be able to go over a victim in the ocean or in swift water, drop the flotation device to the victim, assuring that they actually get the flotation device, because that's one of the biggest problems we have with swift water, and be able to establish that rescue utilizing these drop systems or payload delivery systems. Another good use case scenario is if you have a car over a cliff and you got paramedics and firefighters going down, it could take 45 minutes. It could take a long time to get down there. What we can do is actually fly a radio device down to the victim, be able to give them directions with a loudspeaker on the drone, have them be able to establish communications with that radio device, and give the guys up top a little more information, so they have that real-time information like we were talking about earlier. So all these different types of scenarios, I think all over the country, other public agencies are developing stuff, just like what Don's working with their department. That's really on the cutting edge of where I think things are going to start going, and I think we're just starting to see the beginning of this.
All right. So we've touched on some of the different waivers that everybody's working on and using in their operations. What do you see, or what would you like to see the FAA maybe allow public safety agencies to do as we continue moving forward so that they can expand their operations and provide even more services?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the steps they've taken recently are huge, right? The tactical beyond visual line of sight waiver, which, it's platform agnostic. Anybody with any drone can do it as long as they fly within the parameters of the waiver, less than 50 feet above the highest structures, less than 1,500 feet from the pilot. That really unlocked a lot of the close proximity, low altitude, beyond visual line of sight scenarios, which frankly, you could talk to the other panelists. Those are very difficult to comply with and actually complete a mission in any kind of environment. So having that, kind of behind us is great, but certainly unlocking that for 107 for the rest of the industry is key. But there's some next hurdles, right? You want to, like what Don was saying, is at some point you want to have drone in a box or dock systems where, and one-to-many features where you can really scale this. And we don't have to be, public safety doesn't have to be a bunch of UAS experts. They can just be public safety experts that utilize drones that do a lot of the work just by themselves or autonomously. To really unlock those, you're going to need some FAA waivers that remove the requirement for a pilot in the command. That's a big step. Some of the mitigations that might require that are huge, right? You need probably some sort of type certification for the dock, as well as the bird, the flying over people. You'll probably need some advanced airspace awareness tool, whether, currently they have like ground-based radar and sort of a layered system, but a one-stop approach where you have, computer-aided vision and cameras that can monitor the airspace and do a better job, frankly, than people, and integrate with the drone and direct the drone to do things to mitigate any kind of collision is very, people are working on that right now. That would be great, and having the waivers that would enable that would really, I think, unlock the industry. And then all of a sudden you get all these first responders who are really good at saving lives, imagining new use cases for this advanced autonomy. The things that Wayne was saying in terms of delivering AEDs, obviously there's people trying that today, but really the roadblocks to that aren't necessarily the hardware. There's a lot of great drones out there. Obviously Wayne can speak to that. It's a lot of it is integrating into existing operations and then also having the permissions and the waivers to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely a key for advancement. It's having those waivers.